Hello class, we are Team 1 and we did our big team company project on the popular athletic apparel and footwear icon Nike Incorporated.
About Nike. Nike was founded in January of 1964 by Phil Knight and Bill Boorman. At first, it only distributed shoes for the Japanese shoemaker Onitsuka Tiger. Over the years, it has diversified into other sport-related shoes, apparel, and accessories. It sells its products through direct-to-consumer selling or through partners in the sporting goods industry, like Foot Locker, Finish Line, and Dick's Sporting Goods. It has a strong brand image, and it uses famous athletes like LeBron James and Cristiano Ronaldo to market its products. Over the years, it has faced allegations of running such sweatshops in countries like India, China, Vietnam, and recently it has come under fire for sexual harassment cases in its company.
So Nike's mission statement is listed here. What drives them is to do everything possible to expand human potential, and it hits on doing that by creating groundbreaking sport innovations, by making our product more sustainably, by building a creative and diverse team, and by making a positive impact in communities and where they live and work. Historically, Nike has been able to create new innovative technology and have done so by implementing sustainable processes. However, they have not been as consistent in building a diverse team and a positive work environment, with recent allegations of sexual harassment and also history of unethical work environments in other countries. They create value for their customers by implementing quality design, performance innovation, customization, and even just using its brand name to give the product value. Which brings us to their business level strategy, which is a focused diversification strategy. This is so because 70% of their revenues come straight from footwear sales, and 30% come from athletic apparel, sports equipment, and others. Now, moving on to our corporate level strategy, they use a related constrained diversification. Some businesses owned by Nike are the Nike Golf District, Hurley International, Cole Haan, Converse, and Umbro Limited. As you can see, all of these businesses involve either footwear or athletic apparel or both. They acquired these smaller athletic footwear companies to build more core competency, increase the market share, and take advantage of cheaper resources. Their global strategy is an international strategy. Overall, they have been heavy investing in research and development for sustainability. You don't see much differentiation between countries of products that they offer. It's just mostly the research and development that goes on globally. Their main goal for their global international strategy is to remain sustainable, because ultimately sustainability leads to profitability. They do have a slight local responsiveness with their Come Run With Us app. It gives you the local feel, but it's it's standard for every country. Their financial performance recently is at the highest it's ever been. On June 2nd of this year, their stock was up to $79.60 per share, and revenues have been on the rise for the past 5 years. Like mentioned earlier, and we will discuss it more later, current issues facing Nike are the sexual harassment allegations within the corporation and the decline in the retail industry.
External analysis. The industry analyzed in the report is for the athletic footwear, apparel, and accessories industry. The economic environment of the industry is affected by the growth rate and levels of unemployment. The recession that ended in 2009 affected the industry, as consumers tried to spend less and save more, or buy items of cheaper price. Current socio-cultural factors like fashion have affected the industry, as consumers want products that are in current fashion or are trendy. Demographic trends like religion have also affected the industry, as companies have had to create sporting clothes that go with certain religion. The following graph shows unemployment over the last couple of years. Starting in 2008, we can see unemployment being at a 5.6%. Then in 2009, it reached a 9.4%. But then in 2010, it started to decline to the point where in 2018, it reached a 4.0%. External analysis continue. In the global environment, the industry is trying to adapt its use of raw materials, design, and products to be more eco-friendly. As the companies within the industry are wanting to be more social responsible towards the environment and the damage that is being done to it. With changes in the technology environment, online shopping is becoming more popular. This is affecting the brick and mortar stores as they're losing profits, as consumers are preferring to do online shopping since they see it more convenient and easier. In the political environment, the industry has adapted and placed regulations to help workers and reduce the number of sweatshops. Something that was established was the Fair Labor Association, which consists of multiple companies around the world and human rights and labor representatives to establish a code of conduct and independent audits to factories around the world and how they are being managed and how their workers are being treated.
The five forces model is important to understand and analyze a company with because it helps us understand the forces that shape competition. Starting off, the threat of new entrants is very low. The industry of sporting shoes, apparel, and equipment is already very expensive. When comparing a new entrant to Nike, there is a huge chance that there is no competition. Nike spends $3 billion on advertising alone, as well as already having a long-lasting competitive advantage in the market. Moving on, the bargaining powers of suppliers are low. This is because Nike has made a smart decision of having many suppliers. This means that one individual is not going to have that much influence over Nike and its decisions. Although the bargaining power of buyers is at more of a mild force, no matter how innovative Nike can be through their products and advertisements, there is a low switching cost for consumers to buy another product. This leads to higher forces that pertain to Nike. The threat of substitutes and rival competition are the strongest forces that Nike has to deal with. Realistically, Nike nor its competitors are ever going to have the majority of the market share. All of these companies are successful, and although they are the top dog companies such as Nike, Nike will never be 100% dominant in the market. This will always keep the industry always innovating and constantly competing. Nike has proven that they love a challenge, especially against competitors. Nike's current life cycle stage is at maturity. Nike has not slowed down in the demand of its products. Nike is constantly coming out with products and advertisements that keep consumers talking about the firm. An example is the Michael Jordan line. Every time there is a new release, there is a new demand to buy the newest pairs of Jordans. Talking about industry structure, Nike competes in an oligopoly industry structure, meaning that they have a limited competition because the market is shared by a small number of producers or sellers. Nike is only worried about companies such as Adidas and Puma because they are on the same product quality and athletic performance level as Nike. They are fighting for the same groups of customers. Talking about strategic grouping, Nike is marketed to all athletes, focusing on men and women ages 15 to 40 years old. Nike has 3 different segments that they split customers into: geographic, demographic, and psychographic. They analyze these segments so that they can better understand their consumers. Nike had to learn a lot of lessons early on in their journey to diversify their brand. They had huge product failures in the 1980s, which consisted of aerobic shoes, which they were late to the game on creating, and casual shoes that just did not get picked up by consumers. These letdowns led to intense financial decisions that led Nike to firing 280 employees and losing $200 million in sales. Nike focused their new ventures on creating products by working with other sports athletes to create these new products. These sports included basketball, tennis, and football. This is how they picked up the pieces. Nike also focused their marketing on consumers and not on their products. All of these items helped Nike to gain a better competitive advantage and brand image. As we can see, since their early on failures, that Nike's gradually gained more revenue every single year. Their revenue has increased by about $2 million each year in the past 5 years. This helps Nike to make its products better by having more money to invest in its research and development. Nike is really big on creating new technologies for their products, especially their shoes, and they have huge facilities that go into researching these things, so increased revenue means that they can go into better quality products.
So after we conducted the internal environment analysis and the external environment analysis, we were able to develop a SWOT analysis that was the company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is very nice. This is listed here. However, the best part of this analysis is the way each strength and weakness and opportunity and threat can help leverage each other to help the company even more. So the way Nike can use its strengths to pursue opportunities is using its marketing abilities to sponsor athletes at the future Olympics and right now the 2018 World Cup. It could also leverage its sustainability competencies to integrate backwards throughout the company at a low cost. The way they could lessen their weaknesses to take advantage of some opportunities would be incorporating backward integration to be less dependent on their suppliers because most of their manufacturing is outsourced. This could help them increase the product quality management of the entire company. Also, what they can do is use their strengths to avoid some threats. So using the innovation of customized shoes to differentiate from the increased competition would be a great example of that. Also, the company could lessen their weaknesses to avoid the threats. So Nike could decrease the threat of the power of suppliers by lessening the amount of outsourced manufacturing that takes place and manufacture more in-house, like mentioned earlier. Also, they could increase the abilities in public relations and human resources to avoid the legal costs of issues within the workplace. After conducting the different analysis, there are a few key problem areas that Nike is facing. The first one being reliability on suppliers, because much of their manufacturing is outsourced, and this can create a quality control issue because they don't have any control of how well their products are being made. There is also a decline in retail stores, which is where they sell their products mainly. Unless it's an outlet Nike store or online, it's coming from a retail store. Price competition is becoming more important to buyers because if it's cheaper at another retail store, they're just going to go to that one. There's no loyalty there. This puts pricing pressure on Nike to give them products at a lower price. Third, there have been recently sexual harassment allegations, which will be discussed in the next slide. This brings us to the biggest issue Nike is facing right now, which is the sexual harassment scandal. For years, women have been facing discrimination and a hostile work environment while working for Nike. Multiple complaints have been made to human resources, however, nothing has come of it. There was also an example of a woman who had submitted a complaint of a colleague who had sexually harassed her to human resources, and there were no repercussions for this man, and 2 months later he was actually promoted. There has also been a history of a frat boy culture, is what they call it, considering almost all of their executives have been male. Women finally had enough and decided to take a stand. They collected surveys of women who had been affected by this work environment and submitted them to HR. HR finally put their foot down, and over the next few weeks, 6 top male executives either left or said they were planning on leaving soon. This is an issue for Nike because their biggest asset is their brand name. Their logo can be recognized anywhere, and having people associate it with sexual harassment will downgrade the brand. Also, much of the future growth for Nike is supposed to come from young women purchasing their shoes and athletic apparel. Now it is a different story considering how young women are treated within Nike. Lastly, millennials tend to work for and buy from places that have a higher purpose. Unless Nike does something to bring light to these situations, future star employees and many future consumers will look elsewhere for their products.
The first recommendation our group produced was to implement more diversification on their board of directors. This meaning that the board should have more female representation because currently there are only 2 female board members out of 14 members. The second recommendation would be to add an educational program for all the employees to participate in that would thoroughly discuss Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This would help the company as well as the company's image. A similar step was taken by Starbucks, for example, which got positive feedback. Lastly, the third recommendation, if one exists, is to rewrite the anti-harassment policy. A company is run through its values, and if the policy was updated, then Nike's employees would feel more determined to prevent such situations from happening.